Alright, hit the button. So, video probably shouldn't make. People complain, but people complain no matter what video you make, it appears. I mean, I thought my last video was a pretty good dissection on the subject of determinism, and you get this same old bullshit, irrelevant and silly comments, so I guess I'll have to do a comment video eventually. So, yeah, there might be a string of videos that just go into the fact that you constantly have to qualify every word in the vocabulary. What's the meaning of is? What is? What's a it? I mean, it's so bad. The cheap evasions of rational order to any kind of logical conversation based on the existence of words that represent something. In math or physics, you can do it this simple way. You say a distance, and you can break it into units, and you can say it's 6 units long, and you can describe it, define it, these people are just, Piro's abusive language is just epistemic. Yeah, I mean, it's constant in every video. Just even the simple thing, I mean, how many times have I made the counter argument that there's nothing, almost nothing in common or similar between the origins of life on Earth and multicellular organisms. I mean, single-celled life forms are structurally entirely different than multicellular organisms in terms of the mechanism's function. Completely different platform of evolution. It's like the difference between, it's like if a city could be called a living thing because it actually did something, ate and pooed, and not recognizing that the humans that made it up, or the citizens, were functioning completely different than the city with its waterways and its traffic and buildings. You'd recognize that they were two different mechanisms entirely, that they would be evolving by a completely different mechanism. So anyway, it's just so none of these words ever get cleaned up, even when you try to qualify what your definition of the words is by stating kind of clearly that yes, it's wrong to call these two things that are fundamentally different the same thing. Say these are both life forms, and they're not really. They're not the same thing. And so anyway, Hythloday is playing the word game again, and so in my last video I just sort of made those accusations of this bullshit, and he just switches. So it's just a bait and switch, or however I want to describe it. So the argument goes from he can't figure out what same means to I can't figure out that bad is bad. So if he concedes that bad is bad, that it's a description of something, a qualitative description, that the obvious ones, as I overtly say in the video, you can tell the difference between getting a debt and getting a profit. You can tell the difference between a positive number, plus sign, and a negative number, minus sign. Different things. And he thinks bad is some sort of meaningless word because there's no such thing, in his opinion, as a quality, a value, a value state. So, so he just plays this game as if he's making some other argument besides using semantical tricks to evade the conversation, which is, I'm personally conscious. I know good and bad. I know the difference between torture. I know the difference between nail in the eye and a cupcake, and I know that difference is just as real for some other consciousness. And it's, because you can just see he's back to the them argument. It's only bad to them. It's not bad as an event, as a description of a happening, a negative happening, a deficit happening. I mean, you can go back to even our cliches in language. So this is sort of the denial. I mean, no pain, no gain. People have accepted a rational definition of these terms. We know that we know the pain is a bad thing, and it's the price you have to pay for the good thing, the gain. We know there are such things as gain and loss. We know there is such a thing as winning and losing. And it's not just a to them thing. It's a happening in the universe, not a non-event. It's an event. And so we've already had this argument. So this is such a grotesque waste of my time. So I think he plays like a total of 2 minutes in my video and spends an hour pretending that we agree about something, which is just a lie. You know, he agrees. He writes the words and even says, "Agreed, agreed, agreed." No, there's no agreement. You're agreeing to playing your semantics game. You're not agreeing to the qualified definition for these words I've stated. You're agreeing to your definition of these words. And I haven't accepted those definitions at all. I don't think they're reasonable. I don't think they're consistent with how people use language. It's just an evasion of concept. And it's disgusting. So anyway, so we never even got to the part of the video where, well, as far as I know, I've only halfway through this crap. You know, where I made the argument that he has provided no evidence that determinism is at all linked to the non-existence of a personal brain and the non-existence of consequentialism. Determinism doesn't break any of that. Doesn't break the fact that we are conscious and we have the experience of value sensations, good and bad sensations, pleasant and unpleasant sensations. Doesn't change those facts at all, not the tiniest bit. Anyway, all right. So somewhere in the video, I did at the end. I think I did a little summing up. You know, life's too expensive. It's a basic statement, and he thinks that that's subject to the legitimate disagreement. And I would say that somebody can try to disagree, just like I can say there's no God and no reasonable defense for a God theory. And I don't think there is any reasonable defense for any kind of belief in the existence of higher intelligences. The evidence is zero, and the counter evidence of it would require it would require magic is strong. And the same is true for this argument. I'm not saying it's the obviousness is only obvious once you separate yourself from some sort of bullshit presumption of accomplishment or worthiness based on silly things like optimism bias and, you know, mass hysteria, you know, ignorance, mass ignorance. All right. Anyways, so he says. So yes, it doesn't bother getting into the whole argument of the imposition or the argument I made in the context of, you know, if you actually had to impose the price of your existence on organisms personally, if you had to do the personal slaughtering and the personal, I'm going to cause you a bad day so I can do my little dancing on your grave, essentially. I'm going to make a bridge out of your skull for my pleasure. If you had to actually do that, the killing, the harming. But this would be a different conversation. All right. And, you know, ultimately this comes down to the Benatar argument, or my argument, that these are, all we can do is, you know, bandage wounds that should never have been created. We're brought into the world injured, violated. Our sensibilities are violated by rude smells and obnoxious things and illnesses and damages, and all we can do is mitigate against how much of that harm we endure, and then call ourselves successful because we endured less than somebody else. not a rational standard for accomplishment. Alright, so anyway, then the next phase of that would be, there's two parts to the argument. The how much gasoline is being expended, how much pain and suffering is being imposed, and then how valuable is what we're producing. And I'm obviously arguing both arguments in the sense that yes, it's not only too expensive, even if we were spectacular, but we're not spectacular. The dance we're doing isn't worth a nickel of suffering. We're just chasing our own silly tails and chasing a problem that doesn't exist if we don't exist. The tail doesn't exist unless we exist, and we're just chasing something that does, a notion in people's heads, and we're torturing sensitive organisms to chase notions. No better than living fairy tale fake lives. So, alright, failure to acknowledge the requirement to use consistent axioms. Okay, start with a, let's see, an unshifting foundation. Yeah, so that's where the problem lies, is that we can't, consistent axioms just turns into something like consistent language and the consistent understanding of the meaning of words. And so he's redefining the word bad as some relational thing. It's not a measurement of a quantity like heat or height or weight or wetness or something. It's some other weird thing. It's not a description of what it is as a category that things fit in. Negative, damaged, broken. It's not like one of those words, when in my opinion it's exactly like one of those words, and it means something. It doesn't mean nothing, it means something. And he wishes to make it a irrelevant word. Doesn't have any meaning, absolutely. No such thing as broken. It's essentially the same. It's saying the same thing to me. It's like just somebody saying to me there's no such thing as a broken clock when I'm looking at a clock that doesn't tell time. Of course there's a broken clock. To tell me there's bad is relational, whatever that means, is idiotic. I experience it. I know what bad feelings are, and they're intrinsically bad, and there's nothing else to say. They are the definition of bad. The word bad couldn't exist if the negative sensations didn't exist. If negative sensations didn't exist, the word bad wouldn't exist. Truth. It is the definition of the word. It is the definition of the concept. It's not relational. It's the definition of wetness. Badness is defined by this qualitative state of feeling bad. Alright, so I've been over that so many times, how it's the origin of the concept of bad couldn't exist if consciousnesses didn't exist. If feeling things couldn't have bad feelings, there would be no way to make up a negative circumstance. Couldn't have a negative circumstance. Anyway. So this is just the same old, as I realized 5 minutes into this, we're just heading for this ought gap bullshit. At 9 minutes, he's finally getting to that. He's talking about how he's going to be concrete, right? He kept saying in this whole video, oh, concrete crime, I'm going to be concrete. And he didn't say a fucking thing that was concrete in the first 27 minutes of this video. Just playing word games. Oh, no, I know what same is. Yeah, same is same, I get it. No, you don't. Anyway, alright, so it's the same old is-ought gap in the sense that you can't figure out that there's any obligations to recognize what the true cost is of victory. So if you win, you have to understand that it means all the others lose. Like one of those other guys would have been the winner if you didn't take the winner's seat. That kind of thing. That the winning isn't free. It creates losers. It's not complicated. Alright, the fact that the goal has no grand meaning. So that's a quote from him somewhere 14 minutes in this thing. So that's where you get the indication that he thinks all goals are equal, all aspirations are the same, that there isn't a fundamental difference in the outcomes, and therefore the meaning is intrinsic in the fact that the outcome will be less favorable, and it'll be less favorable because more harm will be endured. And that's the simple truth. So when he speculates, are there any legitimate moral goals? And so again, uses the word moral. I explicitly stated the word doesn't have any meaning to me as a useful word. We should be using the word value. And so he's saying there's no legitimate value goals with my language. And I'm saying obviously there is. There's huge value at stake. Torture is at stake. Value is at stake. It's 2 + 2 equation. It's basic economics. Do you burn currency, or do you use it to buy food? I mean, you have a choice. I could burn currency, or I could buy food with the currency. Something simple like that. It's kind of obvious. Although currency gets complicated, because if you actually did burn currency, you just made everybody else richer. So, in a sense, it's a no-lose circumstance. But, the idea of being in debt versus being in profit is understood, and the idea of making, doing something more efficiently is undeniable in terms of minimizing the cost. Alright, so then he says things like, major agree on qualitative sameness of my comfort and my neighbor's comfort. So now he's playing the game where he's saying, yes, okay, I'll concede that your comfort is just as valuable as your neighbor's comfort, and then he's going to basically say, but your comfort doesn't have any value. That's a delusion in your head. So his argument is, my senses are fooling me. So if I think torture is bad, me being tortured is bad, that's just some sort of runaway reflex. He actually does this silly thing where he describes why it's bad is because we run away. So the fact that we run away is why it's bad. And when we all know that the fact that we run away is because it's bad. We run away because it's bad. We don't run away and that means it's bad. If you get what I'm saying. The badness is why we're running away. The badness isn't happen because we do run away. Running away doesn't make it bad. The fact that we are running away means it is bad. And so just word games. We're just playing a grotesque word game on that one, in the sense of this statement that he actually asserts that I'm being fooled by my senses into thinking torture or fun aren't the same thing. Because they are. And my senses are just fooling me. My brain is being completely duped by some silly notion that there's a difference between torture and pleasure. And I'd argue that only a psychopath could believe that's true. And that's the category he's in. By definition of psychopath. This is one of the required, to be a psychopath, this is how wacky you have to be. Is to think something stupid as, it doesn't matter whether you torture me. Anyway. So then he kept using homunculus. So, if we concede the existence of a homunculus, homunculus is only used as a way of trying to keep blaming a god, so to speak. It's like the God answer. Well, God did it, you see. And then you're in the trouble because now, well, who did God? And then who did the God maker? And then who did the God maker of the God maker of the God maker? That's the homunculus argument. So it doesn't have any role here. I'm not arguing for the existence of a brain inside my brain. Okay, I'm arguing that our brain is basically two functions. One function is to create sensations. The other function is to solve the sensation problem, to improve the quality of our sensations, to take the badness out of them. And once you're an intelligent organism, then you can start taking the badness out of other people's sensations, because you can recognize that the quality of your life isn't more important than the quality of their life, that the same value is being produced by both consciousnesses in the form of their experience. Alright, but those are the only two functions. There's no homunculus. So this is kind of a, it's not even a straw man, because it's a slander man. It's exactly the opposite of anything I would argue for. And to assume that I would agree to let's just talk as if there was a homunculus. No, I have no reason to do that. I have no reason to allow you to frame my argument that way. I'm not relying on the existence of any such thing. So anyway, yeah, that's good enough. So then he complained about metaphors in arguments. And there's absolutely no other way to define words except for metaphors. All words are basically using other words, and all the words have a definition, and the definitions are essentially made out of other definitions. So it's only by the context of the words related to words like heat or fast or tall or any of those things that those words have contextual meaning. So they're all metaphors. You have to use metaphors to describe something. And as I've pointed out before, the unfortunate circumstance of consciousness is it's unique in the universe. There's nothing else like it. So there's nothing to metaphor it to. There's nothing to metaphor sentient sensation to. There's no metaphor for it. There's no other machine like it. There's no other function like it. There's no other material thing like it. And so there is no metaphor for it. And so therefore he's pretending it doesn't exist, because I can't write a definition of it. I can't write a definition with known vocabulary that has any way of saying, look, bad is a sensation you feel. Yeah, I can't do anything. I can't use any other way to explain a bad than to explain its harm to a sensitive organism, something that feels the bad. And that's the creation of the bad. And I've said it overtly, but yes, you can't have bad in the universe unless you have something harmable in the universe. And the only thing of known harmability is a sentient organism. There's nothing else that can be harmed. There's nothing else that can have a value experience. So, but anyway, so I mean, he says this stuff as if this is, and I'm sure there's some, like I said, all this sadistic, nihilist, selfish cunts will say yes, because, it's the world they want to live in, that embraces this nonsense. But how can you possibly describe anything without comparing it to other things? It's just, you only know what a truck is because you can compare it to cars, or vans, or, everything's by comparison. Everything's by metaphor. Alright, willpower, what the hell? That appears to be the Piro video. Okay, so that's page 1. This is page 2. Where the hell is page 3? Alright, I think I started, okay, so maybe I started on this page after that line. Something like that. If you don't think it's a shitty product, yeah, no, that's already did this page. Okay, so flip it over. And what we got? Idea power. No, that's not it. Film strip, QM. Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, that's it for that page. I thought there was another page. I guess not. Alright, so it's just 2 pages. Good. So we're only almost halfway, and I got to play it, so this is just getting up to the part where, he starts with the punchline, which is the word bad doesn't mean bad. Doesn't mean a negative thing has happened, doesn't mean a deficit thing has happened doesn't mean the opposite of a gain has happened. Let's see, all by the brain, a projection of the brain. Consciousness is a manufacturer. Oh, that's the sentence that was to another video. Okay, so 16 minutes in, he says something like, no economy to moral goals. So he's basically claiming that, again, using the word moral goals instead of value goals. So clearly there's an economy if you think in terms of value. Thinking in terms of morality is a dead end, because that word is just layered in dogmatic, ritualistic edicts, and not just a rational adding of 2 plus 2 or adding of 4 minus 1 million leaves you with a deficit of 996 million, 100,000. All right, so bad isn't a categorizable concept in his view. It's not a category things fall into. Again, he's using some sort of language. It's some sort of relational thing. And it's not a relational thing. It's not how I experience it. It's not how I see it in the world. And in my opinion, it's not a reasonable definition of the concept. To say the concept doesn't exist is very convenient if you want to be a sadist or a nihilist, but it doesn't have anything to do with any evidence or facts that would indicate that's true. There's no facts that indicate I'm being duped by my brain into insanely thinking. Pain is not bad. Alright. Feeling bad isn't having a bad feeling. So yeah, that's where it gets, that's the convolutedness of what he's saying. And it is. It's negative, it's a deficit, and it's that intrinsically. It's the origin of the concept is in the manufacture of a sensation. If the sensation can't be manufactured, the concept doesn't exist. Alright, agreement, he says. Again, I put in a box the word agreement because there's no real agreement here. Let's see, his whole argument is bad is not same. His whole argument is bad is not same. I don't know why exactly I was going with that. But again, so he's claiming we agree, and he just keeps playing with these two words. If he accepts the existence of intrinsic bad, then he'll say he doesn't understand same. You know, I'm the same as some other sentient being in terms of the value of my bad sensations. And or otherwise he says, I accept same. Yes, my neighbor is just as functional as I am, their consciousness doing the same thing, but bad isn't real, and his welfare is irrelevant and my welfare is irrelevant, therefore also not meaningful, not a qualitative question in any quantitative way. Appropriate words. Words can't be wrongly applied. Just an ironic statement from him. Words are vitally important, and he's pretending that the words are just vague representations of reality, barely connected. And no, they're explicitly and fundamentally and profoundly connected. A bad feeling is not a bad feeling, so again we just keep, that's where we're heading. That bad isn't in there's no intrinsic core for the idea of bad. Bad is just a notion in the head, has nothing to do with any real quality that an event could have. So torture is just as good as pleasure. the consistency of the value. The consistency of the value, currency. Yeah, so again, there's no consistency here. He's just saying the money has no value. It doesn't really buy anything. It doesn't, and it's just bullshit. It's real. The debt notes are real, and the profit notes are real. Creation of debt. Yeah. So I mean, we know that we know the difference between creating debt and creating profit, and it's the same for bad and good. It's the correlation is legitimately made. That's basically the function, the price of life. So I guess he's claiming himself to be the god of words. Need a god to make bad bad. Yeah, I don't need a god to do that. Right, so let's see. So bad is a categorical concept. Bad is, he says, is a relative concept, relational, not a qualitative description of value quantity. So the word bad isn't an attempt to give qualitative description to a value quantity. And I say, of course it is. It's exactly what it is. That's all the word exists for. So let's play some of this rubbish. And yeah, it's just very disappointing. I mean, the comments on videos are idiotic. They're these stupid word games people play, and oh, it's just so depressing. It took me, I mean, just to watch this 27 minutes of this video. I could only watch it in 2-minute pieces because you could just, you know, the obnoxiousness of the falseness of this whole bullshit argument, and it's just it's so obnoxiously, it's not ignorant, it's malicious. This isn't stupid, it's maliciously denial. It's an evil trespass, a violation of reason and logic, professing to be doing logic, claiming it's illogical for this person to recognize the intrinsic badness of torture. It's disgusting.
Absurdity. Obviously, I expect obviously he'll say that's not what I meant, which would be fine, but I can't conceive of him defending that in the interpretation I get, and I'm not being facetious or pedantic. I'm literally reading that and understanding that sentence as given. Yes, plus.
Yeah, the sentence something like "bad is bad," or whatever it was. But yes, you are being pedantic. You're being every kind of funny word for evasive, trolly, catch-22 word game player.
One's negative, one's passive. Right, but these are the meanings I give to the words, not intrinsic to the word.
Okay, so these are meanings I give to the word, not intrinsic to the word. So debt isn't really a negative thing. Debt is somehow profit. No, it's intrinsic to the word. The minus sign and the plus sign are intrinsic to the value of the quantity, and intrinsically part of that difference is huge difference. They are on the opposite directions. So this is just a bullshit argument, and I used exactly that language. I pointed out, I said bad, and I compared it to negative, and I compared it to deficit. And he's pretending that those comparisons weren't made. Those metaphors weren't stated. And that's one way to understand that we understand that in each one of those circumstances, why is debt bad? Well, because it makes people have to live in deprivation and to live in squalor. Well, what is negative? Well, negative is a mathematical thing, so that analogy might even be, it might be a metaphor that is a way of explaining the negative quality of consciousness using a mathematical equation, where you have this dramatic difference in the oppositeness. I mean, opposite can be understood. Up and down. Gravity, anti-gravity. So in that concept, that's a valid metaphor for the oppositeness of the satisfied and dissatisfied state.
Is good and bad. That is a construct, a vocalization, a written.
I mean, it's a vocalization, a written. No, it's a fucking conceptual category. It's a word that has a definition, and the definition is always going to be related to some sentient organism in trouble. And that's what it's always going to lead to. Everything is bad, starvation or squalor or blight or famine or disease or whatever. It's always going to be related to some sentient organism being fucked with a bad feeling.
Code for the concept, which is a relational concept.
Relational. What does that even mean? It's a relational concept. I guess I have to wait until, what, 3/4 into the video before you explain what the fuck relational concept means? No, it's a qualitative word describing a qualitative state.
And an abstraction.
It's not an abstraction. It's explicit as you can get. Good, bad, positive, negative. There's nothing abstract in there. It's as linear and as hard and as rigid and as clear as it could possibly be. Left side of the fence, right side of the fence. Up, on the roof, in the basement. I mean, however, yeah. I mean, it's hard, explicit. There's nothing arbitrary.
And many words can all point synonymously in this context to the same relation. So,
many words like what? To the same relation of what? And again, the words I've already applied, you're saying, are somehow disqualified. I've already applied them in currency. The difference would be debt and profit. In mathematics, it would be negative and positive.
So what we're talking about, again, this is not a dispute so much as a point that that when he talks about experience, the subject is a relation.
It's not a relation. So again, the subject is a relation. The experience has a qualitative essence, substance. And the difference between the bad and the good sensation or the bad experience is positive, negative, is opposite. Value.
The discussion is a relation. Now, is that...
Says you. Says the fuck you. Yeah, whatever that means, I don't accept that silly definition of the word bad. The word bad is a description. It's a category. It's an explicit statement regarding what the thing is. It's a word of origin. It is the origin of the concept of negative value.
Under dispute?
One's deficit. Yeah. How can somebody claim to be logical and they reject those as obvious accident?
Well, clearly,
profit and loss. He doesn't accept the idea of profit and loss.
Can you claim to be logical and not have come to a better understanding of my position? I'll tell you why. It's because you don't, like I let you finish a sentence there.
No, you didn't let me finish it. Actually, you broke the key sentence right in half. The key point where I'm saying profit and deficit, and you cut it right in half. So the word profit's on one break, and the word deficit's on the other side. So how you didn't break the fucking continuity and context of that statement with your fucking idiotic interjection before I got to finish the fucking sentence? I stop videos when people finish sentences, idiot.
Can you? You would interject and forget that there was a question, and it'd be like, you, what do you want? You interject too soon. That is a criticism.
Well, fuck you. And again, prove it. Why don't you show a demonstration of exactly how I interject too soon? Like I interjected after you say interject instead of I wait for the too soon part, for the qualifier. I wait for there to be some sort of coherent concept being stated where, again, you broke my statement right in the middle of the metaphors describing the word bad. Profit, loss, plus negative. You broke that. You broke the definition.
So you can spend all this time and fail to grasp where we have agreement and where the disagreement is.
No, this is such a lie, okay? Everybody go back in my videos, type in the word same, okay? And you'll see how many fucking videos I had to make arguing this stupid, idiotic point about sameness. And again, then look up, what's the word he uses for the them thing? To them. Yeah, go look up, maybe to them is in one of my titles, because it has to be, because they just kept saying this stupid to them bullshit. To me, to them. Like somehow it matters. The broken leg only matters to them. It's only like real somehow to them. It's not real in the universe. It's not an event in the universe. No, it's only happening in the to them universe. Somehow to theming is a frame and we can just separate that from reality. To them is just a way of taking something that really happens and just making it go the fuck away. Just the way the sadists want it.
It's just obvious truths of existence.
So there's some truths there that we're in agreement on, and there's some warning signs. But the crucial one is yet to come.
We have experiences. The experiences are value latent.
Right, so that's just yet another way of saying value. Yeah, value in this understanding. So this is.
Yeah. That's the subject. That's what bad has something to do with. Is value. Yeah. That's what debt and profit has something to do with. Value. Yeah, that's what morality has something to do with, is value, idiot. So if you'd use the word ethics or you'd use the word value equation, well, maybe you could understand what the conversation's about. Because it's about value. And the fact that it does exist, and it happens when sentient organisms have sensations. You insane fuck.
Value, negative or value plus, yeah? It's not laden. That's the ladenness is metaphoric.
Right, so it's not intrinsic, it's not part of the sensation itself. So his argument is torture is the same as comfort. They're not really different. We're just being duped by our biology to think there's a difference between being fucking tortured and not being tortured. He thinks that's a delusion. Except when it's him.
Poetic twist here, right? The
yeah, it's poetry to sit there and recognize the difference between fucking torture and bliss. That's fucking poetry.
Is just an expression of import to you.
Yeah, to you. So there we are. See, that's the catch. To me. No, it's an explicit statement about absolute reality, about the fucking way the fucking universe works and the things happening in the fucking universe. It has nothing to do with to me. It has to do with to any sentient organism experiencing torture. And it has to do with the fact that it happens. It's an event.
This relation, and that's fine. But we have yet more synonymous concepts to, as yet, that still the same relation is being talked about. Yeah?
What does that even mean? The same relationship is being talked about, and he's drawing arrows up here on the stuff we are supposed to have agreed on. Which, again, like I said, you can just see the catch-22. If I concede the existence of plus and minus value, then I'll not recognize what same means anymore.
This homunculus experiencing.
Yeah, so again, he used the word homunculus, so you heard it. When have I used the word homunculus? When have I said there's a homunculus? When have I argued that we need to have a homunculus? Where have I stated the brain is anything other than a mechanical device doing the brain function of creating sensations and then engineering solutions to the sensations? Where have I said anything other than that? Oh, that's right, nowhere.
And the relationships he has with them in terms of wanting, right, and not wanting.
So again, he says it's bad because we want not to have it. So the want is what makes it bad. We don't want to avoid pain because pain is bad. It's the fact that we want to avoid it that makes pain bad. So he thinks, again, that the running away is evidence of the thing's qualitative meaning. So the fact that we ran away is defining the thing. And it isn't the fact that we're running away because of the definition of the thing. And it's just such bullshit. He's saying bears are, monstrously powerful and can beat the shit out of you because you ran away. It's not that's because bears are big, huge, monstrous organisms. No, they're a threat because you ran away. They're not a threat because they're giant and have power and big teeth and big, huge, giant, fucking 3 or 4 inch long claws. No, that's not why you're running away. You running away means bears are a threat. They're not a threat because of the claws, the teeth, the reality of the bear. It's just such a fucking cheap, creepy word game.
Not wanting, yes. All these terms synonymous with this relation contextually. I put it.
Yeah, well you put it and I say is. I use the word is. Is bad. It isn't about what I want. It's about what is bad. I've stated that explicitly. A fucking retard can want something that's fundamentally bad for them. The want doesn't make it a good thing. If they want to whack themselves in the head with a fucking hammer, it doesn't mean whacking themselves in the fucking head with a hammer is good. Doesn't mean that the product of it will be good sensations or a good outcome. Want has nothing to do with this fucking conversation.
And I don't think you'll disagree.
Just weighted.
Well, I just did.
Value. Weighted, heavily weighted in value.
Words, yeah. This is highly weighted. This is low.
You got ALS.
Yeah, so somehow there's a disagreement. We don't understand. He mocks in here. It's too bad. I guess I should have played back further, but he just mocked in saying the word bad. Ooh, it's a bad thing. So, again, just this trivializing thing. Like it's just a word. The word doesn't mean anything. It doesn't represent anything. So he'll just play a game with the word. The word torture doesn't mean anything. Torture, smorture, butcher.
You're heavily weighted in unpleasant experiences. If you don't, if you're rich and have a charmed life, you might be heavily weighted in enriching and rewarding gratifications. But we're all...
More what? What? Gestures and analysis. So there's something wrong with that analysis. There's something wrong with saying that if you have ALS, your life will be more weighted in negative experiences. That's not true. If you have cancer, your life's going to be more weighted in negative experiences.
We're all climbing some hill. Even the greatest athletes, they keep fighting for more trophies and more glory because they want to be the best, and they're perfectionists or something.
So this is cracking eggs. Metaphors. So there's something wrong with listing things that we understand to be circumstances where value is involved, to make it clear that this is the concept of value. To draw the picture of it, this is all the things it adds up to circle it and point at it. It's like pointing arrows. Makes it clear what the kernel is.
Still fighting. We're supposed to be winners. We're still grinding for it.
So he's not playing the part of the video where I dissect his silly theory that determinism means there's no individual brains and there's no conscious experience.
When the game's over, they just go kind of psychotic and alcoholic. But anyway, that's a kind of subject, the whole psychology thing. I'm really not talking about the psychology of living. I'm talking about the truth of what our existence is, which is the fundamental part of it is the sensations we have.
The truth of our existence, what it is. Well, inmendham talks about.
Right, so I just basically said that one of the fundamental, the most important elements of our existence is conscious sensations. If we didn't have sensations, would this be a conversation? Would there be anything at stake? Would there be any reason to even have a conversation? Would there be anything being accomplished at all? No. There'd be nothing at stake. There'd be nothing to argue about. There would be nothing on the table. There would be no cash, no anything, no cards to play. No value in winning any argument.
Truth of our fundamental existence. What does that even mean?
You don't understand what that means? That there's core truths that are the essence, the substance of our existence? That my fingernails aren't substantive. Not really important. There could be all kinds of different things. There could be different colors. There could be different shapes. Who cares? Consciousness, sensations, the ability to be sensate, to feel bad. Big, 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 big. bigger than any other detail about me, is the fact that I can be tortured. Huge, important fact of my function. Of all my functions, you know, farting and jizzing and pissing and talking and doing all kinds of things. Of all the functions I have, capacity to be tortured, right there on the top of the list.
I guess it just means that all we've been discussing is important. Okay? Well, I'd agree its importance is contained within what has been agreed. That there is an homunculus, and he has these scales, and all these words we use to label the...
Well, again, I'm not agreeing to any homunculus. I'm just agreeing that we have a brain that can do logic, and it can add 2 plus 2. And I can recognize that I personally have a welfare state that I know to be meaningful. It matters that I'm not tortured. I can understand the other conscious brains are doing the same functional thing, and it does matter just as much that they not be tortured. The same bad will happen. If I have torture, it's bad. If they have torture, it's bad. It's the same fucking bad. That's what I'm saying, and you're not agreeing with that. So don't play this. There's agreement on some homunculus bullshit.
The relation with it, and in that context, it is really important to the homunculus, you know.
Right, but it's not important for any good reason. That's his argument. Okay, he's saying, yes, it's important that you not get tortured to you, but you don't believe that for any good reason. That's what he's saying. There's no good reason for me to fear pain and suffering. That's what he's fucking saying.
Okay. And it's a truth to our existence, as in, you know, this is a big truth. We're all the same. The relations exist for everybody. And it consumes and directs nearly all of our purposes.
So again, this relation word, does anybody know what that means? Piro, you want to give me an explanation of what he means by bad is a relation? Because I don't understand. I still know what the fuck where did he pull that out of? Where does that come from? Why is that supposed to be in my common vocabulary and vernacular? What special school was I supposed to go to understand that bad's some sort of relation thing? And it has nothing to do with a value declarative statement about the qualitative essence of something.
Okay.
That's what your life is made of, the sensations you feel. Now, the thoughts are, I think, incredibly valuable in terms of logic. And
right, now what's this valuableness of logic is a different value scale.
No, it's the same value scale. The only thing the logic has any value in doing is in moderating how much of the pain and suffering and torture happens. That's why I said it's extremely valuable, is because it has capacity to mitigate how much waste there is, how much unnecessary suffering exists. That's what the intelligence can control. Fuck. So again, the value is only because it has an impact on the amount of bad that happens.
The value of logic is a different use of value, or because it's a different scale. It's not an experiential value, as discussed.
Yes, it is. It's exactly that. That's exactly the value of it, is that it will change what is experienced. Yes, the value isn't in me doing logic, like I can do any kind of logic, like logically, I know the light comes out of this end of the flashlight, and so I'll point the flashlight at the irrelevant, arbitrary thing for no good reason, for nothing to happen. Nothing at stake. So yeah, that logic has no consequence, and I would argue that kind of thinking wasn't what I was talking about. I was talking about thinking that has something to do with how much poison there is in the water. How many people get sick? How many people die in some horrible, unnecessarily protracted and agonizing way? That's what I was talking about, not which way to point a flashlight. Thoughts about, winning a gold medal? No. I'm talking about thoughts about curing malaria.
Okay, but there is the idea of the homunculus and the idea of logic and there's the relation here of value, but it isn't the same. We have to.
Well, again, there's no relationship. Okay. Again, logic has no value if the logic isn't being applied to a circumstance that has value. The outcome has to be value rich. There has to be something at stake. Logic is irrelevant if you're playing cards and there's nothing at stake. There's no value on the table, and it doesn't matter whether you have a royal flush or nothing. It doesn't matter whether you roll snake eyes, because nothing will be lost. Nothing will be tortured. If nothing's at stake, then the logic is meaningless.
Say that this is number value and good and bad sense number two. This is a different relation because it's not an experiential relation in the same way.
It's only an experiential relation in the sense that it will cause experiences if applied well. It'll cause a beneficial impact on what people experience. But yes, in and of itself, it has no value. I was not making the argument that thinking has value in and of itself. No, feeling has value in and of itself. The feelings are intrinsically good and intrinsically bad. Logic isn't intrinsically anything. It's only valuable if it's applied to circumstances where value is saved, where it creates efficiency in value.
Connecting dots.
Right, so there is, a dot-to-dot picture. There is no value in connecting dots, intrinsically.
Yeah, duh. So who's making that argument? Who's making the argument that there's value in connecting dots where no welfare is at stake? I've only made it so fucking explicit that the kernel of value is created in the sentient experience. That's where the value is made. That's the chocolate factory. That's, let's say, if you were a war fighting machine and you had a choice to blow up the aspirin factory or the chemical weapons plant. Well, yes, which one do you blow up? Yes. Which one's relevant?
Right? That's a metaphor. And I take it you'll not actually argue on this, so I'll grant you the latitude here and agree that I have a value in logic, and I similarly have this relation. And it's a kind of experiential relation, but it's not an experiential relation to states.
Well, look, I just made it clear now, so I'm just saying the only value I give logic is when it's applied to the economy of value. So when you're not applying it to the economy, it doesn't mean anything. So unless you're applying the formula or the math to some circumstance in which it matters which way the building's pointed, or it matters whether it fits a standard of function, if it doesn't have something to do with function, the quality of function, then yes, it's irrelevant. Fuck the math. If the architecture doesn't matter, if the building's going to stand up no matter how I build it, it's going to perform all of its duties no matter how I build it, well then yeah, who cares? Fuck the math. Fuck the logic. The logic's only relevant to how it will impact the value-making machines.
That's it.
It's obvious everybody wants to do
I experience the value of logic, but it's not a relation to a state.
Alright, well, I don't need to continue arguing this part, so maybe I'll watch the rest of this video. We'll just see how it goes. But I'm sorry to the people we've been over this before, the same dodge. So he's just playing the to them argument here. So that's all we're hearing again, is to them, to them, to them, to them, to them. Same bullshit. The bad isn't a real concept. It isn't a real event in the universe. He thinks it can happen in some fucking private frame, and therefore it didn't really happen in the universe. It doesn't have to be accounted for because it happened in a private frame over there, and that's not part of this universe. That's the underverse. So we have multiverses on the phantasmagorical Pyrrho end, and we have underverses that this idiot lives in where value doesn't really happen. Goddamn fucking insane asylum, this goddamn planet. You're a fucking lunatic.